my name is Emily and I'm calling in from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. This past semester, I completed my practicum with the Canadian Observatory on Homelessness. My time there was largely spent focusing on eviction prevention programs and efforts. So for my culminating report, I decided to complete a review of government policies influencing eviction in Canada. Evictions are a growing issue in Canada, with at least 7% of households having faced eviction in the past. Evictions can be caused by tenant factors such as non-payment of rent or noise complaints, landlord factors such as renovations or demolition, and system-level factors such as lack of affordable housing, government regulations, and larger economic and public health crises. Regardless of the cause, evictions can have grave implications. For tenants in particular, evictions often result in forced relocation to less adequate housing and can lead to instability in many areas of life. These consequences can further impact financial security, individuals' mental and physical health, and increase their risk of homelessness. In this regard, evictions are both a consequence and a perpetuating factor of poverty, housing instability, and poor health. Some individuals and households are disproportionately at risk of evictions, such as low-income individuals and families, seniors on fixed income, Black, Indigenous, and persons of color, and other marginalized groups. Critically, the patterns of those most at risk of eviction are not coincidental, but are a result of overlapping policies and policy structures that fail to support these groups. Not only does policy influence the circumstances that leave individuals and households at risk of eviction, but policy can be influential in preventing evictions and averting homelessness as well. With this in mind, I set out to identify the types of government policies that impact evictions. Specifically, I conducted a narrative review and policy scan to answer the questions: what types of government policies exist that influence eviction rates in Canada, and what policy changes are required to prevent these evictions? So the search was conducted on databases accessed via the University of Victoria's library website and Google searches of grey literature, government statistics, and news outlets. A snowball research approach was used, including citations found within these resources. The initial search terms can be found on the screen here, with a publication range from 2005 to 2023. All results are presented in English, have full text availability, and had to either discuss government policies that influence eviction rates or discuss factors related to evictions. Results that focused on eviction prevention programs or policy implemented by civil society were excluded from these findings with the purpose of maintaining a narrow scope. A total of 87 relevant references were included in this review. For the most part, results included academic literature, which identified policy themes and best practices, grey literature, which critiqued policies and provided recommendations, and news articles, which provided specific iterations of policies, offering context for the time and jurisdictions where a policy was implemented. The policies included in this review can be categorized into 6 main typologies, as seen on the screen here. So for financial assistance, this might look like rental assistance or general emergency funding, which can be used towards other necessities. Examples of housing-based policies include policies influencing the financialization of housing, affordable housing goals, and rent control. Various methods of increasing eviction filing standards were also mentioned, such as increasing eviction filing fees and forbidding landlord credit reporting. Municipalities can also enact policies related to legal aid and tenant rights. And distinct from financial aid, poverty reduction policies were much more comprehensive and long-term. So this might look like increased welfare and income support, or improving supports across multiple sectors, such as subsidized childcare and expanding funding and access to education, mental health services, and dental care. And then lastly, policies that explicitly recognize housing as a fundamental human right might look like anti-discrimination policy and the recognition of Indigenous people's right to housing as outlined in UNDRIP. While these typologies discussed outline many promising avenues for eviction prevention, their implementation isn't always straightforward. prevention efforts are frequently hindered by conflicting policies, unsupportive policy contexts, and changes in political leadership. Some specific challenges that I came across included insufficient funding, premature terminations of policy, variations in policy across the country, and impractical or inconsistent definitions of terminology. As for recommendations that were put forward in these findings, to promote the likelihood of eviction prevention success, eviction prevention should explicitly be prioritized in policy. To do so, a systems approach should be taken, addressing various levels of influence and the relationships between those influences, which can redistribute power and resources and create shared accountability between sectors. Policymakers are also encouraged to engage people with lived experience throughout the policymaking process. Failure to do so overlooks many opportunities for learning, slows progress, and leaves policymakers at risk of unwittingly perpetuating these inequities and the negative consequences of eviction. Eviction prevention policies also require an accountability framework and ongoing evaluation. Of course, this is a very brief overview of all of the changes that need to happen, and knowing what to do is only one small piece of the puzzle. Moving forward, I would love to learn more about how to encourage government buy-in on these ideas to facilitate the change that needs to happen. If you are interested in doing any further reading, I have a few references here, or you can reach out and I'd be happy to send them along. But I would like to express my gratitude to Kathy and Sari for their support throughout my practicum and writing journey, to Erica and the rest of the COH team for providing such an inspiring and supportive environment for growth and learning, to my peers, Jesse and Martina, for their constructive feedback, and to my dad for policy guidance and support, and for being my #1 cheerleader. Woo. Thanks.